Hello and welcome to another episode of Tour de Core. And Tour de Core, of course, is the show where we take a deeper dive into WordPress core. And lately, this has been the training wheel series, where I show you my exact process of developing a WordPress site from start to hopefully finish someday soon. Yeah, wrong. That is the wrong place for that. Okay. On today's list, we have some very exciting things, at least exciting for me. I'm going to be doing a couple more things on the back end, whereas until now I was mostly focused on working on the front end of the site, which, depending on your preferences, might be interesting or it might be less so. But today I'm going to be creating a custom post type within WordPress for our players. And I'm going to be creating a Gutenberg block that's going to work kind of as a Metabox on the back end, as a Metabox replacement, I guess. What we used to do with Metaboxes before, you can now do in Gutenberg. So that's where we're going to manage all of the related additional information about the players, like their social media links and name, game, age, and so on. And then after that, I'm going to start working on the actual front end implementation of the custom post type for the player, of the single view of that. So let's get into it and let's see. So first of all, I would start by looking at what we have in the design, because that's kind of like what we're gonna aim into implementing on the back end as well. So we have a name. Okay, so this is a little confusing here, because the design shows Eddie and then it shows Eddie Thompson. So I'm guessing this is supposed to be name, the first Eddie. It's probably supposed to be name, but we'll just assume this right now. Usually if you have the designer on hand, you can ask them right away. And if you don't, what you usually do is you go through all of the designs and you look for them and you write down any questions that you have for anything that is not clear, and then you send them to either the designer or your client or whoever you're working with that provided you with the designs. Anyway though, so we have name over here, which we could use the post title. That's what I usually do, unless based on the design there's a different way that we display the name. In that case, then I might have a special custom field for that. Then the next thing that I see is that we have a couple of social links. There's only 3 displayed here, but I'm probably going to just go with all of the ones that we're using in the footer and just replicate those, except for Google Plus again, which is almost dead. So far we have name, and maybe I should write this down somewhere. Let's see. I'll switch over here and I'll create a scratch buffer, scratch file. Yeah, let's say scratch file. Where's my scratch file? Scratch file. Okay. And there's plain text somewhere down here. So scratch files are a specific feature to PHP Storm and all of the other IDs provided by JetBrains. But in a regular editor, you just create a new file and you save it somewhere. Scratch files are kind of like they stay inside of your project, which is nice and convenient. As you can see, I have a bunch of scratch files already open here. I don't know why I have so many. Oh, because some of them disappeared. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Oh, actually, scratch files probably stay within the project, but they probably stay within all of PHP Storm. Anyway, so the player custom post type, we want to have custom fields. So we want to have social media links, and this is, let me get the full list here. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, that's all. And by the way, up here now I have my keyboard shortcuts shown up, which is gonna be helpful, hopefully. But oftentimes you're gonna see combinations with the Windows button. This is specific to the window manager that I'm using, and it's just essentially allows me to quickly switch my focus between the different screens that I'm using. And yeah, so you can just ignore that one. But other things like Control-Shift-A, you can see this brings up the actions menu within PHP Storm and things like that. Okay, so custom fields, social media links. We also have game, which is a little odd, but okay. In-game role, age, country. Our design actually says that the country is Age of Empires. I am fairly certain that's not the case. Okay. So social media links, yes. The game, the in-game role, the age, and the country. I guess there's a video as well on there. And we also have a picture. So for the picture, we could just simply use the... Okay, so we also have video, which for now is just one video in the design. Maybe it's gonna be more. So let's do like showcase video. Let's just call it video. Okay. Okay, so that's all our custom fields, and this is something that's gonna be present for every player within the team. So we're gonna go and create a new custom post type for that. Now the thing is, okay, let me close some of this stuff. Oh, I haven't switched to, okay, settings. Oh, did I lose all of my, no, okay. 1 second, I just want to switch something here. Appearance. Okay, so reduce this delay, and I want to find no. Maybe I don't want this. Okay, editor. Okay, yeah. There we go. I'll switch to this mode where I can see all of my tabs open at the same time. It's a little bit more convenient. Okay, so we do have a Heresy Utils plugin. Okay. Blade, footer blade. I don't need any of those views right now, so I'm gonna ignore them for the time being. Okay, and now we're gonna go to the plugin. Now, when it comes to plugins, people have different preferences in terms of how they build them out and how they structure them. There's complicated ways that you can build plugins. There's simpler ways that you can build plugins. The simpler ways might not necessarily be very future-proof, as in they might actually become more difficult to manage over time. Whereas the more complicated ways, you might be able to get something in place that is actually manageable and extensible in the future. I personally, when I work with simpler plugins, I do prefer just a simpler approach, partly because I haven't spent enough time to develop a good, more advanced approach. But what that usually is, in my case, is that I do the following. Should I namespace this? I don't know. let's namespace this actually. Heresy toes. Class plugin. So in this case, I'm adding a namespace, which essentially means that anytime I want to access this plugin, I'm gonna have to call it by the namespace when I'm outside of these files. So within the theme, for example, I would have to use heresy/utos/ whatever I need to access in order to get access to that, or I would have to add a use statement, which we'll see. We'll get to that later on. The nice thing about namespaces is that then you don't have to worry about prefixing your functions, because usually the way that it's done in WordPress with functional programming before namespaces were a thing was that anytime you create a function, say maybe you want to have a function that is called something generic like getDay, for example, very simple basic function. Since you don't know who else is going to create a function called getDay, what you would do is you would put like, in this case, either HU for heresy/utos or heresy/utos getDay, and that essentially reduces the risk of name collisions, which would result in a fatal error, which is not fun. So yeah, using a namespace avoids that, because then you can just write your function, still call it getDay, and then anytime someone wants to use it, they have to do something like heresy/utos getDay, right? And I would call your function that way. Okay. With this said, let's see. So we have our plugin. And what I like to do here, again, this is preference based, and I read somewhere that this pattern is becoming old and getting pushed away. Makes sense, I guess. So what I do is I have a simple I have one class that has a bunch of static methods, and it has a protected static started, which we can initialize as false by default. And so what we do in the static and the start method is we check if it's not started, then do all of our initialization and stuff like that, and then say static started equals true. And so what this allows us to do is allows us to only start this, only initialize the plugin once. So this pattern is known as a singleton pattern. Well, kind of, not quite in this case, since we're not actually initializing. A singleton pattern is more, it's more something like this. So if we have a method called getInstance, right, and then we have protected static instance is false, and then we can again check if, why are you messed up? Oh, function. So if we don't have an instance, then static instance equals new static. And essentially static in this case is referring to the class itself without having to actually call it. It's useful because then you, in case you change the name of the class, you don't have to change anything else. And then we just return static instance. And the difference with this case is that we're actually initializing a new variable that's an instance of this class. But I found that working with static methods with WordPress especially is fairly, it makes it somewhat easier, I think. Because then all of your filters and actions are just essentially the class name, you know. In this case, we'd have to do Heresy utos, the class name and the action, and that's it. So yeah, I personally prefer just working with a static methods in the plugins, but that's for simpler ones. Like if this gets too crazy or too big, then yeah, it's probably not going to work well. And we might actually even see this happening by the end of the series, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to wait and see. And if it does happen, then we're going to do something about it once it gets getting crazy. Yeah, for now, I just do this. And so all I do here is I do static, add filters usually, and add actions. Very simple. And then I just define protected static function, add filters, and add actions. Yeah, and then in here, you know, I'm gonna define all of my filters, I'm gonna define all of my actions, and that's about it. And so that way I only have to call one method here, and then if someone else tries to call this method, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna add the same filters and actions multiple times. Again, if you want to, you can, because all these functions are public, obviously, because they need to be able to be accessed outside. So if someone wanted to, they can add the same action multiple times. They can remove the action and stuff like that. But yeah. Okay, so we do have our add actions and add filters. The next thing is to actually go in and register a post type. So this is done by, so you should register your post types on the init, I think. And let me take a look. So if we look up register post type, which luckily it brings you right to the WordPress developer codex documentation. Yeah. Note, post type registration should not be hooked before the init action. Also, any taxonomy connection should be registered via the taxonomy's argument to ensure consistency. Blah blah blah. Okay. So yeah, essentially the earliest you should register a post type is on the init action. And if you're new to WordPress actions and filters, there's a very helpful page called WordPress actions. Let me see. So there is one page that lists all of the actions kind of in their so this is definition of actions, how they work and whatnot. But there's one that actually lists all the actions, and yeah, actions run during a typical request. This is very useful. It shows you the major, I wouldn't say all, because I'm not 100% sure that it's all of them, but it shows you really the major actions that you usually care about, and more, honestly. Yeah, so what we have here, MU plugins loaded. So this is when the must-use plugins were loaded. So after all of them have been loaded, then register taxonomy. Okay, so this is registering the default taxonomy and the default post type. Then you have plugins loaded, which is the regular plugins, not must-use plugins, are loaded, and all of the pluggable functions have been loaded as well. Then some other stuff. Then before the theme is loaded, after setup theme, that's after the theme is loaded, blah 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 blah. And then we have the init action. So we at this point have access to the current user, and so we can see who the current user is and do stuff based off of whether the user is logged in or not, which subsequently calls widgets init. That's where you register your sidebars and your widgets, which we did last time. Blah 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 blah, a bunch of other actions. And then we have parse request, which is one action I don't see here. It's just that would be, there it is down here. Okay. I'm not sure if these are exactly in the right order. Okay, well, anyway, yeah, so we have parse request, which is when the request is being parsed. We have parse query when the actual query is being parsed and stuff like that. So yeah, this is very useful on the documentation and where you're trying to figure out what to do. This is one place to look, but obviously it depends on exactly what you're trying to do. But yeah, if you're trying to hook to one of the actions, you should look for it here. And most of these, if you click on them, they have an explanation of what their purpose is and when they usually fire, when it usually fires and stuff like that. Okay, so with that being said, back to register post type. So yeah, it should be hooked on the init action at the earliest. That's what I usually do. And so now what I want to do is I want to say, not register action, register player post type, right? And the default priority is 10. You can specify here or you can skip that. Since if you skip this number, it will be the default for this 10. You can set it to 0, you can set it to 100, any number you want. What the priority means is essentially when filters or actions are being called, in this case actions. Why are you complaining? What? Okay. When actions are being registered, like when callbacks for actions are being registered, a stack of sort is being created. And so, you know, if you, let's say, if you have this, then when the init action is being run, first the register player post type function will be called, and then register player post type 2 will be called, because the priority is 11 in this case. So the priority is important mostly when working with filters, but also sometimes when working with actions. So yeah, that's what the priority is for. With filters, it matters because sometimes you want to, if you're working with the post content, for example, you want some of the default filters to run. Sometimes you don't want them to run. It really depends on the use case. But tweaking, playing around with the priority parameter is sometimes useful. PHP Storm, why? Is this gonna not work? Maybe it's not gonna work. Okay, well, let's see if this is gonna explode or not. What? Not again. Okay, whatever. Okay, so if we go back to the browser and let's see if the plugin is active. It's not active. Let's try and activate it. Okay, yeah, okay, so we can now use static in this case, but what you can use is the class magic constant. There's a thing called magic constants in PHP, and usually you can set them apart by the fact that they have underscore, underscore, something, and then underscore, underscore. The ones I commonly use are class, file, there's also dir, there's line, okay. There's line, and there's probably a bunch of other ones. If we look them up, I'm gonna, let's see, PHP magic constants. They're quite convenient. Let's see, in the manual. Yeah, so a large number of predefined constants, which essentially you know, whatever you use them, they just magically give you whatever they're, you know, like the line one gives you the current line number of the file. So you can use it on one line and it will be one, and you can use it on the following line, it will be a different number. And yeah, these constants essentially just automatically get updated to the correct, to give you the correct value. So the class one is very useful because then I don't have to actually type in the class name ever, which again, if I ever decide to change the name of my class, I don't have to do that. I also, the other cool thing, this class should be the full path, so including the namespace. Whereas if I couldn't write just plugin in here because WordPress wouldn't see this class called plugin, or if it does see it, it's not going to be my class, my plugin class. So yeah, that way you're saving yourself some typing, and then you're saving yourself some search and replacing later on if you decide to change the name of your class, which is quite nice. Okay, so now if we go back to the plugins page and we try to activate it again, it should work. There we go, we have plugin activated. But there's nothing going on yet, right? Like everything is just standard. Okay. I guess it's time to actually update now. So we have the update notice right here, right? And we could update from within WordPress, but because we're using Sage, no, not Sage. We're using Bedrock. We can update WordPress through Composer instead of doing it that way. And so what we have to do, if we go back to the code, so I'm going to take a look. Okay, I am in the right place. So the root of my project, above the web directory, you can recognize you're in the root of your project by looking for Composer JSON, your .git, if you have one, if you set up a Git repository, your .env file and stuff like that. So what we can do now is say Composer update, and that's going to look for all of the dependencies of the project, all of the Composer dependencies, and it's going to look for updates that fit your specific version constraints. So Composer has a syntax for creating kind of version constraints. And you can see here, for example, there's what is the caret, and then 1.4. You can do star for any version and stuff like that. Let's see. So in this case, yeah. See, in this case, WordPress is set up as 5.1. And as we can see right here, updating Symfony polyfill, vlookus php.env, squizlabs php code sniffer, and row of security advisories. None of that is actually WordPress. So what we need to do in this case is add the caret. I think I'm not very familiar with the exact thing, but I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's minor versions. Okay, hold on. Composer caret meaning versions and constraints. Again, everything is on the internet. Well, a lot of things are on the internet. Let me correct myself. You just have to know how to look it up. So caret version range, the caret operator behaves very similarly, I guess, to the tilde. Okay, it sticks closer to semantic versioning and it will always allow non-breaking updates. For example, caret 1.2.3 is equivalent to greater or equal to 1.2.3 and less than 2.00. Makes sense. Doesn't necessarily make sense with WordPress, because WordPress doesn't follow semantic versioning. So there could be breaking changes in WordPress 5.2. In general, there shouldn't be breaking changes, but you don't know, right? Like, yeah, it's not using semantic versioning, so the version doesn't necessarily mean whether there's breaking changes or not. But regardless, in our case, it should work just fine. We had WordPress 4.9 before this, so this will work well until WordPress 5.9, and well, actually until WordPress 6 comes out, and I imagine that's gonna be a while from now. So I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm gonna use Carrot 5.1, and now we're gonna run Composer update again, and we should see actually WordPress updating in this case, because our restriction is at least 5.1 but less than 6.0. And yeah, as you can see, updating roots WordPress from 5.1 to 5.1.1. It's downloading and it's gonna do a bunch of stuff. And yeah, and we'll have an updated version of WordPress, which is nice. I'm closing some tabs that I don't need anymore. Okay, so yeah, WordPress updated to 5.1.1, and let's take a look at the browser. And as we can see, if we go to dashboard, WordPress is indeed running 5.1.1. So it's that easy to update WordPress. And by the way, the same works for plugins too, except for plugins. If we look in their documentation, specifically for Bedrock, if we look at the Bedrock documentation, then what we're going to see is, oh, PHP Storm is indexing everything. Things are going a little crazy. Okay, so plugin. Yeah, so we can add plugins through Composer by using the wpackagist repository, which is a Composer repository for WordPress plugins and themes in general. So what it does is essentially it copies I think they copy them over locally, I'm not sure, but anyway, they provide an easy way to install plugins and themes through Composer instead of having to do some crazy stuff and whatnot. And it's very, very convenient. And so usually it's just wpackagist-plugin or -theme, and then the slug of the plugin or theme, as it is in WordPress.org. So that is super convenient. Oh, PHP Storm, come on, finish your indexing. Okay, still a little slow. Maybe I can turn off preview. Is that gonna help a little bit? Yeah. Okay, let's wait a little bit longer, I guess. Okay, done indexing. Woohoo! So now if we go back here, we just updated all of our dependencies, so that's good. If we go back to our plugin, we have register player post type in here, right? So what we should do, I guess we should probably do the right thing and actually localize our strings, even though this is for now, it's intended to be used only in English, but it's a good habit to be in. So let's go and do that real quick. So what we want to look up is WordPress plugin localization, and yeah, again, the developer handbook, very useful resource. So what is localization? It describes the subsequent process of translating an internationalized plugin. Localization is abbreviated as L10N because there's 10 letters between the L and N. But how do we actually do it, right? Let's find out. So we have WP CLI we can generate the path file for our localization. The question is how to internationalize your plugin. Introduction to get text domains. Yes. Yeah, so this is a very good tip. because even though it works, okay, we'll get back to this in a little bit, and I'll explain about text domains and stuff like that. But first of all, so we have text domain and the header. Okay, so we have text domain already. We have domain path. Good. Now, how do we actually register? Text domain. Loading text domain. Okay, yes, that's what I'm actually looking for. I guess this is the last thing you do. I do it first. I'm not sure if that's right. Probably it makes sense to do it first. But anyway, so what we need to do again is add an action to plugins loaded, where we're going to load our plugins text domain. So what we're going to do, and again, the text domain is defined here as heresy-utils. It can be anything you want as long as it's unique. In general, the kind of like rule of thumb is that the text domain is simply the slug of your plugin or theme, with the idea that this way, because slugs are supposed to be unique for the plugins and themes, you know, your text domain is not going to clash with anything else. That's out there already. So yeah, the start text domain, we have the main path of /languages. And so what we need to do right now, again, we need to add another action. So I'm just going to grab this, paste it over here. The action, the handbook says that the action that we need to hook into is plugins loaded right here. And so that's what I'm going to do as well. So add action for plugins loaded. And I'm going to change the name of the method that should be called on plugins loaded. And I'll call it something like load text domain, right? Nice and simple. Public static function. I wonder if there's a I guess not. Okay, public static function load text domain, and in there all we're going to do, let me copy the code over from the codex and we're gonna customize it. So this is I don't okay, I think it worked this time. Okay, so load plugin text domain, domain, in this case it's heresy-utils, deprecated, false apparently. I like to do it in lower cap style. Plugin relative path, base name, their name, file, .languages. They had the same example of /languages before. I'm gonna keep this as /languages. So we'll see if it works. Okay, so now we're loading the text domain. Loading the text domain means that we're telling WordPress, hey, you know, this is my text domain, and in this directory you should be able to find any of my translation files. And WordPress has its own default locations for translation files as well, but you can also bundle your translation files with your plugin in case you're doing like a custom plugin, or in case your plugin is now translated on WordPress.org. You can bundle your translation files with your actual plugin. And so yeah, that's all it says. It tells WordPress, hey, you know, if you need to if you see translation functions with this particular text domain being called, then look for the translation over here in this directory. That's all we're telling WordPress. If we don't tell this WordPress, then it might not necessarily know where to look for translation files. Again, if WordPress has your plugins or themes translation files in its predefined place, which is WP content /languages, I believe, then it might be able to actually do that, but otherwise it's not going to be able to figure it out. Okay, so why are text domains and translations and localizations important? I'm going to show you in a second how they're used. So we're going to go back to our register player post type function method. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go and look up the example from the documentation of register post type, because it already has a bunch of the things that I want, and you can always extend them. On this page, you can see that everything is listed. So these are all the parameters that are accepted by register post type. So we have a post type string, which is the kind of like the ID of your post type, a unique slug of sorts. Then you have an array of arguments or string. If you do, like, I'd recommend array. It's easier to read and everything. So an array of arguments, and then all the arguments are described here, which is very convenient. Yeah, and so what I like to do is go find an example. So here's something that someone contributed. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is, if you go back to the, if you look for the documentation in the WordPress codex, then you will see that same example over here, which is what I used to do since the beginning, pretty much. So if we scroll down all the way to the bottom, we should see a full example there. So yeah, here's our labels, and then the call to register post type. Okay. Yeah, and other users have contributed other things, which is convenient because then you can see, the different usages of this function. But in this case, I definitely know that I want just the basic example over here, and then I'm going to customize it after the fact. So I grabbed all of this code, I'm going to paste it right here. And again, there's lots and lots of stuff here. I don't necessarily need all of this. I'll probably ignore a lot of it, but let's come here now. So we have, so this is a books post type. What I like to do in this case, and it's fairly easy to do this, is grab the books word and then press Control D, which selects the next occurrence of this thing that I've selected. So if I select, for example, specifically books quote comma, then it's gonna select the next books quote comma. See, now I couldn't find this one down here because it has something else. But why I do this, I do it because it's very easy to actually select all of the books first, all of the essentially plural versions of whatever my post type is going to be called, and then I can select all the singular versions. Except for I lied, that didn't actually catch the lowercase books. So let's look for that. Okay, players. Okay, and now I can select the singular versions in the same fashion, and I can just say player, right? And in most cases, if it's just an S, it works fine. But in other cases, you have different plural version. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, now all of this takes them in. We're going to replace in a second. Well, let's see, set featured image. Oh, look at this. So now we can say, instead of set cover image, we want our text for the featured image. We want it to be called, set player photo or something like this. Something that makes more sense to the user in the context of that custom post type. And again, player photo. Okay. Okay, insert into book. Now insert into, interesting. Insert, that does not sound right. Insert into player. Yeah, no, that content. I think that's more appropriate. Yeah. Yeah, insert into player does not sound right. Okay, and essentially you just go through these labels and you take a look and scan through them, and then as you actually work on the site, you might see some places where you might have a better label for something, and so yeah, you can always come back and fix this later. Okay, players list, blah 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 blah. Support, title, header, offer, thumbnail, excerpt, comments. So in this case, we don't have comments, so we can get rid of them. We don't want our post type to support comments at this point, so we're just getting rid of that. Excerpt, not really. We don't want that. Thumbnail, yes, we do want that. We are going to use it as the player's photo. Offer, we don't really care about who created the player, since we're gonna have, like, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 players or whatever. We can ignore that. You know, if you have news articles, then you probably want to associate each article with a specific offer, and be able to easily change that from the admin interface, which is what the offer support does, is it lets you actually change the offer. Editor, yes, we do want to be able to edit the content, so that's good. Labels, this is an array of labels, which again are just all of these. Public, whether so public kind of contains multiple things, and if we go over here to the documentation, we can actually see it. So let's look at public. So definition is whether a post type is intended for use publicly, either via the admin interface or by front-end users. So by default, if you only specify public and you don't specify any of these other options, then they will be the same value as public. But you can set up public as true, or public is true and show UI as false or something. Default is false. So by default, new post types are not, custom post types are not public. But in our case, we do want our post types to be public. And so we're going to leave public as true and publicly queryable as true. Show UI also true, because we want to show the standard WordPress interface, which we're going to customize. I want to show that in the backend. Show in menu, true. Show in menu, this is where to show the post type in the admin menu. Oh, right. So what you can do with this is you can make this the interface for this post type show up under another post type or under another menu like tools or settings or something like this. This is useful if you are building a more advanced structure where like one post type has different other post types that are related to it, and you want to like control them together and like group them under the same like category. Or if you want to have like a settings page, and then under that settings page have general settings, and they have like different the different UIs for each post type and stuff like that. So there's useful places. In this case, it's just gonna be true because I want it to show up in the admin menu on the side. Query variable, this is whether or not to register a public query variable for this post type. This is something more advanced. I'm not gonna talk about it right now. Rewrite, and look at this, what we can do right now. We can use the actual shorthand notation for arrays, since WordPress has or is just about to bump the minimum required version to 5.6, which is excellent. So we don't have to worry about this. Okay, so rewrite. If you set it's false, then it's not gonna use pretty permalinks. I don't know why anyone would not use the permalinks anymore at this day and age, but if that's your thing, then sure, don't use them. So here's what I usually do when I set up post types. I do set up the slug, right? So this is how we're gonna access this post type. For example, we might have, if we have player here, the URL for this to get to a specific player would be player/player1 or whatever, right? If we change player to something, then it will be something / player 1, and so on. So that's what the slug allows you to change. It allows you to change the first part of the URL for each post. Then the other thing is with front, and I like to set this one to false. What does with front do? So in WordPress, there's a setting that lets you add like a prefix for all of your blog posts. For example, you can say blog, that all of your blog posts should live under the blog things. And again, I think you can use that with like the dates and all of that. But anyway, so you could have blog and then post -name. With front by default, and let me double check. Yes, the default for with front is true. Again, I'm peeking at the documentation for registered post type, but with front by default is true. And so what that means is that the link to our post type, instead of just being player / player 1, right? Instead of being this, it's now going to end up being /blog / player / player 1. In some cases that might make sense. I found in most cases that I've built custom post types that it just doesn't make sense to have with front set to true, and so I usually disable that. Okay, so we have slug, we have with front, and then there's some more advanced settings which I'm not going to touch at this point. Okay, so that's good. Now let's see, next one, capability type post. Again, this is a somewhat more advanced feature. In most cases, like where the site, okay, and most of my cases of building websites, I've left this as post, because usually the sites I built were controlled by a very small group of people. So either one administrator or only a couple of people with administrative rights, and they had full access anyway. But what the capability type allows you to do is define a custom capability. And you could even define the actual capabilities. But within WordPress, there's the idea of capabilities and roles, and each role has specific capabilities. And for example, there is edit post, there is delete post, maybe, I forget what all of them are. But what this capability type allows you to do is change this to, instead of post, be player, and this is gonna automatically kind of create require the user to have, instead of edit post, to have edit player, instead of delete post, to have delete player, and so on and so forth. The idea of this is that way you can have a finer control over who can edit specific, which kind of user can edit specific post types. And so that way you can create your own role that manages just this post type without getting access to the regular posts or pages or any of that stuff. They'll be able to just edit players. Again, in this case, it really doesn't make sense, because there's probably going to be like one person responsible for the whole site, and they're going to have full access anyway. So no reason to make this more complicated and to bother with it. Further down the line, you can always introduce this. You can change the capability type, and you can introduce new roles that have the necessary capabilities. But right now, it's absolutely unnecessary. So I'm gonna leave capability type as post. Has archive? This is debatable, but essentially what it allows you to do, you can set it to true, or you can set it to a string, I believe. Yeah. So right now, remember that our individual player can be seen on /player/player/player1, for example. if we just set this to true, then if we go to just /player, we're gonna see an index page, kind of like our blog homepage where we see all of the latest posts, but for players, right? And so then we're gonna have like player 2 or whatever the pagination was. You could have pagination and stuff like that. In this case, I'm not sure. We're probably gonna not have an index page, but we'll see. But if you set it to a string, let's say players, then you can have, this will be the URL where you can see all the players. Just semantically makes more sense to me to have /player/player1 for individual player URLs, and then /players for all the players. Hierarchical. I can never pronounce this word. Never mind. This word essentially says whether this post should behave kind of like pages, where you can have one page and another page. This is players, so no, we're not gonna have this. It doesn't make sense. Players are not structured. In this case, at least, they're not structured in a hierarchy, and so we're gonna leave it as false. Technically there could be like team captain and whatnot, but we're just displaying them flat. A good place to use this is maybe like locations, where at the top you might have country, so Bulgaria, then Gabrovo, then center, for example, right? Then you can have 3 location posts, one for the country, one for the city, and one for the neighborhood. But with players, doesn't make sense, so we're gonna skip all that. Menu position. So here you can define a number, and changing this number, and actually let's do this real quick. So we're gonna leave this as null. Now if we go over here to our dashboard and we reload the page, we can see players as down here under comments, right? This is the standard position where players are going to show up. I mean, new post types when you leave menu position to null. But if I go here and I set the menu position to 0, for example, and I reload the page again, then we're gonna see that players is now all the way above the dashboard. And if you play around, so let's say I'm setting it to 10 right now, then it goes under media, above pages. If I set it to 100, it's probably gonna go all the way down at the bottom, and stuff like that. Most of the time I leave this at null, so that it's just going to its default place, because it's kind of okay. It's not too far up, it's not too far down. It depends. It really depends on, if people are gonna be accessing players more often, like every single day, then sure, put it up at the top of the list. Somewhere in the middle, kind of okay, for me at least. Okay, so we have our players post type. Something that I see that I don't like is that it has the standard icon that is used for post, for example. We can change this with menu_icon. Okay, so we can use the menu icon parameter, and we can either do the URL to the icon to be used for this menu. Cool, so you can do a base64 encoded SVG, which is pretty sweet. That was not there last time I looked at the documentation. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Or you can pass the name of a dash icons helper class to use the font icon. For example, dash icons, dash whatever. Or you can pass none, so you can have a custom icon. That's cool too. Okay, nice. Defaults to use the post icon. Dash icons cheat sheet. I believe there was a very nice. Oh, it hasn't been updated in a while. I wonder if it's still valid. I don't think this is the one I usually use though. Yeah, there we go. Here's a great, again, WordPress documentation. So good. Like, if you know how to look for it and if you know where things are, it's very good. Like, yeah. So let's look for something that has multiple people, preferably. Otherwise, let's just use something that has one person. I guess I don't see multiple people. We can use a search. Person. Human? No. What is this even called? Admin users. I guess. Oh, hold on. Let's take a look here though. Do we have users? We do have users and it already uses that one. Okay, so let's maybe look for something else. What can signify a team of players? Post formats, media. And maybe. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Perfect. That's multiple people. If you do have, this could clash with other icons, but for right now we don't have anything else clashing, so we're just gonna use that. So let's go over to the code and let's add a menu icon. So we're gonna do menu icon, and it's going to be dash icons groups. Okay, save this. And if we go back over to our dashboard and we reload the page, now players has this icon, which makes a little bit more sense than just a pin. So that's nice, you know, little things. Okay, so now if we go to players and we add a new player, we're gonna see this, right? We have title, we have description, we have the option to set the player photo and things like that. Cool. But if we go back to our goals, one of our goals was to create a Gutenberg block Metabox. This is not Gutenberg. This is the standard editor for WordPress, right? That was there for a long time. And the reason why we're seeing the standard one is that by default, Gutenberg is disabled on custom post types. You have to specifically say that you want support for Gutenberg, which happens, I think, as show and rest, I think, is the one that controls this. So if show and rest is true, then we're gonna have this. But we can also look up at, let's see, developer WordPress handbook as a handbook. No. Okay. WordPress developer handbook. Developer WordPress or plugins, maybe. Themes. Okay, maybe let's look up Gutenberg. Okay, so it has its own wordpress.org/Gutenberg/handbook. Okay. Designer and developer handbook, yes. Developer documentation, yes. Creating blocks, extending the editor UI, metaboxes, theme support, blah, 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 blah. What I want to find is how to actually register a post type. Post type. No, okay. Post type. Let's search for post type here. Use post meta. First block. Post editors, data. Templates, key concepts. Maybe key concepts. Let's see. Blocks. Block categories, reusable blocks, templates, blocks, blah 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 blah. Post. Tree of blocks. Serialization. Anatomy. Okay. Oh, order posts. Okay. New format button, apply format, register meta field, create a meta block, initialize, extending the block editor, block registration attributes, filters, deprecations, patterns. Come on. Shouldn't be that difficult to find it. I guess it is. Okay. Let's look for, go back all the way, and let's instead look for show and rest, because I know that that's specifically is it the introduction one? No. No, I'm pretty sure it's not this one. Oh, okay. It is here. Okay. Custom post types are supported by Gutenberg. They need the REST API declaration, so show and rest must be true. By default, again, that is false. Can opt out by not declaring editor support. Okay. We'll be able to declare supported and default blocks, which I think they are doing that already. So yeah, what we need to do, so let's go back to edit, to add new player, and then back to the code, and let's add in show and rest and set it to true. And now if we go back over and look at, if we reload this page, ta-da, perfect. Ooh, I wonder if that works. Let me check something real quick. It does work. Yes. Preferences. Okay, I'm going to do something real quick. Maybe we can place it right here. No, hold on a second. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so now, now you can see my screen, my key shortcuts on this screen too. Nice. Okay, so yeah, now on the add players, we actually have Gutenberg, which is excellent, exactly what we wanted to do. So what's the next step, you ask? It's a great question. Actually, just a few days ago, something that I liked that came out was that now there is WordPress scripts. Let's see where that was. Scripts and styles, blah blah blah. Oh, so this is already in there. Cool. Collection of reusable scripts for WordPress development. Okay. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay. Very sweet. Yeah, so what recently just got published, and I don't know if I can find this now. I saw the post on one of the forums, and essentially what it does is it lets you do things like automatically building your JavaScript files, which is super awesome. So that way you don't have to deal with any Webpack configurations, like figuring out how to set up all of your you know, ES6 to current ES5 compiling and building and all that, which is cool. Okay. Check licenses, blah blah blah. There was another one, I think, start. Yeah, WP script start. Right here, I believe. Yeah. transforms your code according to the configuration provided, so it's ready for development. Automatically rebuild if you make changes to the code, and you'll see the build errors in the console. Entry point for your project's code should be located in src/index.js. And output is generated. Output generated will be written to build/index.js. For single builds, see the build script. Cool. Okay. So yeah, let's do this real quick. So I switch over to the other workspace, and I want to go into web, app, plugins, and here's our file, our folder, which I should add that to the, let's see. So in gitignore, we have to specifically say that we want to keep web app plugins heresy-utils. Is that gonna work? No. Yeah. So I think we just do it like this. Okay, there we go. And so now if we add heresy-utils, it's now actually gonna be tracked in the repository, so we can commit changes and all of that stuff. And git status tells us that there is all of these files included as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so package.json, we already have package.json. That's nice. So now what we're going to do, let's get ignore, is just follow the recommendation from that handbook file and just do npm install @wordpress/scripts --save-dev. So what this is going to do is it's going to go look up the WordPress/scripts package and figure out all of the dependencies, download them, blah blah blah, do all of this automated stuff, and then it's going to save the dependency inside of this dev dependencies key inside of package.json. Dev dependencies essentially are things that you don't need to run your package in production. In this case, actually a plugin, but you know, you don't necessarily need these if you're on your production environment. There's something that they're a tool for you to use during development. It's kind of what the idea is. Takes a little bit of time. There is an alternative package manager called Yarn, which is supposedly faster. Technically, I think it's faster as well. It's just an old habit to use npm instead of Yarn. I'll probably switch someday, but yeah. Really? Okay, yeah, that's, I think, okay, so yeah, part of this WordPress scripts package is some testing commands, which is very cool, because, you know, they have provided you with an easy way into running unit tests. But part of it is, you know, also you have to download a whole browser, which is a little unnecessary, but what can you do, eh? Okay, so it added stuff, and we should see, where's my dev dependency on WordPress scripts here? Hello, save dev. Oh, where did I run this? In plugins. Ah, my god, are you serious? Ah, I downloaded it in the wrong place. Okay, let's get rid of all of the node modules and package log JSON herder. Yeah, make sure you run the command in the right place. Okay, good thing I saw that, because otherwise I would have been wondering why it's not working. Okay, so inside of the actual plugin folder, we're going to run the same command again. Luckily, all or most of these packages should have been cached locally by npm, and so I should be able to see that, hey, I have this version downloaded locally, and it hasn't changed, so let's keep it. Let's just use that, I mean. Again, we're going to wait a little bit, and it's going to happen magically. But look at this, look at this. I really just want to be able to build my scripts, and 1,200 packages I had to download and install on my system just to be able to build JavaScript files. Why? Yeah. There's memes about how vast node modules directories are, and they're true. They're true. Okay, so now when we look at package.json, and hopefully I go back and forth, there we have a WordPress/scripts at version 3.1.0. Yay, sweet. Okay, so now I can close package.json, and now what I can do is I can run one of the commands. For example, let's do check engine. So let's do wp scripts check engines. Is that gonna work? Man. What? Come on. Scripts bin wp scripts check engines, and I'll show you how we're gonna make this simpler instead of writing all this nonsense. Okay. Wanted node version greater or equal to 10.00. To install blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, that's why I run this. Okay, fun times. Hopefully this is not gonna break anything on my other stuff. Let's see. So nvm. I don't have nvm, do I? Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're gonna have to do a couple of things. So first of all, I will have to Linux install nvm, not nvm. nvm is node version manager, as it says right here. And the cool thing about node version manager is that it allows you to easily install multiple versions of the node engine thing, whatever it's called. It lets you switch between them super easily, super conveniently, which is very cool, instead of having to somehow figure out to manage global installations. So essentially it installs them for your user in particular that you're logged in as right now. So install and update script. Okay, to install or update nvm, you can use the install script using curl. Sweet. So I'm just gonna grab this and I'm going to go over to my code, and I'm gonna go and okay. Oh, cool. I didn't actually ask for root permissions. That's nice. Okay. So now close and open terminal, or run the following to use now. I will do this source bash rc, and let's see nvm. Nvm help. Yes, that works. Sweet. So now if we go back to the browser and we look at this, no, never mind. Go back to the code. Run again. Check engines, and it gives us this helpful message of how we can install node, the particular version that we want. So we just have to copy this, nvm install greater or equal 10.0.0.0, and press enter. What? That did not work. No nvm rc file found. Okay, maybe I did not do things correctly. Okay, 1 second. Export nvm there, home nvm, blah 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 blah. Okay, let's open the terminal and let's try this again. No, again nothing. No nvm rc found. Why? Okay, let me go back and read this message again. Compressing, cleaning up, blah blah blah, pending nvm source string to home bash rc, pending bash completion source to bash rc. Currently have modules installed globally with npm. These will no longer be linked to the active version of node when you install a new node. Okay, and they may be override the binaries of modules installed with npm. Fun. Not. If you wish to install them, oh, so right now we just have yarn installed. That's fine. You can remove blah 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 blah. I don't care. Close and reopen your terminal to start using MVM, or run the following to use it now. Oh well, I closed and reopened, and it did not work. Well, let's take it to Google. Google MVM no and MVM RC file found. I'm sure someone already has had that problem before. Should definitely be improved. After running MVM install, reinstall packages from node. That the version installed instead of said MVM RC is not installed. No node version provided. After running MVM install, reinstall packages from node. Got the thing to work, but I want to confirm. Okay. So it would have helped me if MVM exec just didn't suppress the error message from failing MVM use. Also, this particular instance problem could be sidestepped by MVM exec running blah 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 blah. Okay. And right now I'm trying to use MVM install. Okay, so reinstall packages from node, maybe. I'll try this flag that he's suggesting right here, and let's see if that actually works. Use grep option, pattern file, blah blah blah. Unrecognized option, fun. Okay. MVM ls remote. Okay, that's a lot of versions. Latest OTS Dubnium. Okay. Well, how about we just install? I think there were some current. No, not current. Is there OTS? There's no OTS. Okay, let's install current, I guess. Is that gonna install 11? What? Version current not found. Try. Man, come on. This should be simpler than that. Usage, long-term support. I'm reading the documentation of no, has schedule, blah blah blah. Okay, so in theory maybe we should be able to do npm install --lts, installing latest LTS version, downloading, installing, blah blah blah. Okay, cool. Whew. Good. Okay, so that's creating default alias. Good. Okay, so now let's run this command again. See what it gives us. Oh, come on. Come on. Let's reload things. What? Oh, I guess no longer in there. npm version. Oh, okay. npm version is now 6.4.1, and Node.js version is what? Okay, Node version is 10.15.3. Cool. So now we no longer have an issue with the scripts thingy. I totally forgot about something. I'll get back to it in a second. Okay. Okay, so now we have this running. The next thing that they suggest doing, and the documentation again, is just adding the script section and having the scripts that you're going to use. So build and start, in my case, is what I'm currently going to use at the start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into package.json, and I'm going to add the script section, right? And I'm going to say build is going to be WP script build, and start is going to be WP scripts again start, right? And so what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to do npm run start, and okay, yeah, it's not able to find my source file right now, but that's fine. Well, as you can see, it's calling npm script start. Cool, good. That's what we wanted to do. And maybe we should be able to do npm start. Yeah, so npm start works as well. Npm build called with no arguments. Did you mean? Yeah, so okay, npm run script build is what we need to run in this case. Again, it's gonna fail. That's fine. We don't worry about it right now. Okay, now we'll get back to the JavaScript in a second, but first let me go back to text domains. That was a while ago when we talked about this. So I'm going to select all of these text domains here and change them to my custom text domain, which is heresy-utos. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about text domains. What are text domains? I guess I would explain text domains as kind of groupings for localized strings, right? What are localized strings? They're strings that can be translated into different languages, and essentially it's kind of being done by looking at, usually with the simple case, just looking at the string, looking it up inside of that text domain, and seeing if this particular string, as it's written, has a translation in the current language, file. So when you're using WordPress in a language, well, even in English, you can still have translation files loaded. But when WordPress starts, it loads the translation files for the currently selected language. And when we register the text domain up here, we kind of say, you know, like, this is my signature. Here's utos. This is my text domain essentially. And if you see any strings that belong to this text domain, then you can find available translations in this languages directory. Yeah. So how it's done is usually there's ways to generate these files, which you can then create actual translations from and whatnot. Yeah, using the underscore functions. So there's underscore, there's underscore x, there's underscore e, there's underscore escape underscore attribute, and there's a bunch of functions that are all related to localization, depending on the context that you're using them in. Underscore, and underscore e are almost the same, except for underscore e actually translates the given function, echoes the text. So in this case, we don't want it to echo, so we just do this. And this way I'm saying, well, I'm saying two things. First of all, I'm saying, hey, if this add new in my text domain, because that's the thing, you can have the same string in different contexts, right? And different groups with different text domains. So the text domain serves as that separator, because you're not always going to want to translate the same string in the same way, even though it's, if you just look at it from pure linguistic point of view, then yes, like if you have add new without any other context, then probably, you're going to translate it in the same way. But sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you want to translate it in a different way. And so having those text domains allows you to do exactly that. So when you use this function, we're doing two things. Again, first of all, we're saying, hey, if there is a different translation, if there's a translation in the current language available for add new in my text domain group, then give me that. Otherwise, give me back my string that I gave you. And the other thing is, we're allowing automated parsers to go through our code and look for all these instances where we're calling these localization functions and extract all of them and put them into those special files. I think they're pod files. there's, I forget what they're called exactly. Yeah, we're allowing an automated process to go out there, scan all of our code, and get all of that information and put it back into those special files that can be used to translate your code base. As a rule of thumb, any hard-coded string that is not editable within the admin interface should be passed through a localization function. That's kind of the rule of thumb. You know, obviously code comments, they don't belong there because they're not shown on the site. But if anything is being shown on the site in any way, whether it's in the REST API, whether it's in an AJAX request, in the response of it, whether it's in a message, an email that's being sent out to users, all of those, if someone's going to see this message, then it should be localized so that people can translate it in their own language, so that people can use the software in their own language, potentially, if someone translates it for them. So now, because of this automated point, providing scripts with an automation, with a way to automatically parse your code and extract all of these functions, there's something that you should never ever do, and that is to use anything besides a string as your text domain parameter. Never ever do that. And here's why. Because say, you know, you want to be smart and you want to be like, well, which it makes sense, you know, I can see where people are coming from that. I think I've probably done that before too, but you know, we're gonna be smart and say, okay, my text domain, or okay, let's actually make it TD, right, for text domain is Heresy-utos, right? Because I don't want to have to type every single time text domain, the same text domain over and over, or whatever. I want to be able to change it easily. Whatever your argument is, right? You decide that you're gonna have this in a variable or in a function or constant, you name it. There's many ways to define it. And so then you come in here and you say, you know, instead of Heresy-utos, let's have static TD. And let's place that everywhere where I need that text domain parameter. Cool. Technically it's going to work, especially if you have the translation file that already says add new player is something else in Bulgarian, right? At runtime, when you're actually translating this, it's going to work, because, you know, it doesn't matter how you pass this parameter, you know, it's still going to go as a string over to the function that actually looks up stuff, and it's going to see it as a string, and that's fine. That's good. It's going to work. But none of these, or at least none that I know of, the automated tools that go into your code base and extract all of these calls will know what the heck static TD is. They're going to look at it and they're going to say it's not a string. Bye. Right? Because they don't, they're not runtime programs. They're just like kind of static parsers of your code. And so they have no clue what that is. You know, even if it's constant and you can be all like, well, it's simple, you know, just look up the value of the constant. No, they don't run your code. They only read it, and they don't read it in the same way that PHP does necessarily. Kind of, but yeah. Anyway, so never ever do anything like this. Whether it's, you know, a property like this, or if it's a function, you know, get my text domain, or if it's my text domain, or whatever it is. No, always a string. Simple, nice, simple string, so that the automated tools can go through your code and save you a ton of headache. At some point, we'll probably generate the translation files just so you can see what it looks like. So, with that being said, we have our text domains here. So now we're all set here. And again, anytime I have to display some sort of text, I should use the text domain. It's just a rule of thumb. Again, in this case, it's probably not ever going to be translated in a language other than English, right? This is a site for people that speak English. It will not, most likely not be translated into a different site, a different language. But if this is one of those skills where it just takes practice, it just takes it needs to be a habit, right? Like you need to build this habit of always using the text domain, because if you don't have the habit of always using the text domain, and you build this great plugin or theme or whatever without using any text domain calls, and you have thousands of strings all over the place that are just hard-coded without without any of these localization functions, you're not going to be happy when you have to actually go back in and manually put those in there. I can guarantee you that. It's going to be much more difficult to do it all at once. It's prone to missing a lot of places, button labels, links, and all of those things where you use hard-coded strings. It's not going to be fun. And so if you just build this this good habit of actually using it everywhere, then you're going to be much better. It's just a good skill to have. So that being said, let's see if we can actually create some sort of a thing, a Gutenberg block of some sort. So this is a very fun part for me, and I have lots of fun in general. That's the way to say it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to create a new directory inside of a plugin, plugin called SRC, for short for source, right? And in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an index.js file. Now, if you're wondering where I picked these names from, then let's go and look at build, right? Build. So this is in the documentation for the build script, and it says transforms your code according to blah 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 blah. The entry point for your project's code should be located in src/index.js. Entry point is another way of saying the first file, the main file of your JavaScript code that you want to build, essentially. So we create src/index.js, and in there we can do whatever we want. Like we can write all of our code in one file. We can split it up into multiple directories, which is what I'm going to do. You can do whatever you want, but you necessarily have to have this index.js file within the src directory. So that's where I got this from. I'm not just making things up. Okay, so now there's nothing here. It's no fun. Export default. Do we need to export anything? I don't know. Let's just say console log. Let's just put a console log, because why not? Tap. Is this thing on? Okay, so we're gonna just do this. Now nothing happens. Why is nothing happening? What should happen is that we should get a file inside of our build directory. It's not happening right now. Why? Because we're not running the start script or the build script. Now, you can do this with a command line, nice and easy, or what I prefer doing inside of PHP Storm specifically is just have these configurations. So again, this is specific to PHP Storm. Inside of your editor, you might have a different way to automate running scripts like this and whatnot, whether it's build scripts or debugging or anything like that. But this is specific to PHP Storm. If you're not using PHP Storm, then skip a little bit ahead. I don't know how long. And just figure out a way to do it within your editor. Or if you don't want to bother, just open a terminal, type npm start, and you're good to go. So I'm going to use my Heresy utils package JSON, and I'm going to use the run command and do the start script. and I'm going to call this Heresy utos start. Something that's easy for me to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, and I'm also going to add another one, another npm script. Again, I'm gonna pick my Heresy utos package JSON, and I'm gonna select build, and this is gonna be utos build. Utos build. Okay, and I'm gonna click apply. Okay, and I'm gonna select utos start, and the shortcut is Shift F10. Oh, okay. Not inside of the editor though. Shift F10, and right here it opens a new window where it's calling node npm run start. Right? Cool. Very cool. Which node version? Ooh. User bin node. 1 second. I don't think this is the correct version of node. Xerify changes sync. If I watch refill start. No. Okay, 1 second. So a couple of things. I'm going to stop this, and I'm gonna edit my configurations. And for utos start, I'm going to use not interpreter. This one from NVM, which PHP Storm awesomely found for me. Again, same for utos build. I'm gonna use the latest version. Well, I'll change the other one. Well, add it as well. Okay, apply. Okay. So now I'm going to run again Shift and F10, start it, and now we can see that it's actually using the 10.15.3 version of Node, which is nice. Okay, and as we can see, live reload listening on port. What? I don't know how live reload is supposed to be set up here. Doesn't matter. What does matter though is that I was able to build the file, so that's sweet. And if we look at the build file, we have index.js, and we have a bunch of useless stuff. No, it's not useless stuff. It's this is the Webpack base code. So anything beyond that is my custom stuff. Sweet. So we have our code right here. Woohoo! So that's good. So now we need to actually enqueue this script. And to do this, I would go back to the browser and I would look up. Okay, let's find. Okay, block registration. Let's look at block registration because that's what we're going to be doing here. So we have registered block type, but it's called within the JavaScript. Okay, configuration. There should be a place for enqueuing. No. Okay, then let's look in the search. Enqueue script, maybe. See what it gives us. JavaScript boot setup. Wait. Enqueue. No. Be sure to enqueue the build index.js. Okay. Well, how do we enqueue our script specifically for Gutenberg is the question now. Loading JavaScript. Okay, yeah, that's probably it. Yep, there we go. Okay, yeah, so usually with WordPress, let's go back to the code so I can show you an example. So what would you, there's two different actions where you can actually enqueue stuff. You have, okay, there's 4 actions. So you can add action to WP register scripts, which is, I usually use 2 things. I use WP register script and then WP enqueue script, because that makes it easier to separate registration of the scripts from actually enqueuing them. So you have WP register scripts and WP enqueue scripts. Okay, so the WP enqueue scripts is run on the front end when the scripts are being enqueued and are being kind of prepared to be sent to the front end. So that's cool. Then you also have the OP. You have admin enqueue scripts. And let me see real quick if we have. So we have admin enqueue scripts. I'm not sure if we have admin register scripts. No. So we OP register scripts. What? Is it register script section? WP enqueue scripts, okay. Admin enqueue scripts, login enqueue scripts. Okay. WP register scripts. Yeah. No. In project. Oh. Yeah, okay. I just lied to you. There's no such thing as the WP register script section. There's only the WP enqueue script section and admin enqueue script section. The way I like to do it is to have, when I'm enqueuing for the front end, to have one action on the WP enqueue scripts at 0, where I have a method called register scripts, where I only call the WP register script, and I set up all my files, and then on the WP enqueue scripts, I like to have an enqueue scripts function, and I'm just, it's not correct, so don't look at it too much, but I would have like enqueue scripts function where I actually call the WP enqueue script with, like my script. Why preference? I like the separation of the two things. So inside of register scripts, I would have the WP register script, which you can pass the same parameters to the WP enqueue script as you can to the WP register script, but it's easier to. And okay, it's not easier. It's neater in my opinion. So src is myscript.js or whatever, and then you have an array of dependencies like jQuery underscore or whatever your dependencies are, and then you can have 1.001 or 000 or whatever, and then in footer true to have this register enqueue in the footer, and then when it comes time to enqueue your script, you just do this. The neat thing about this, in my opinion, is that if you have a script that you want to enqueue in multiple different locations, but not all the time, so say if it's front page, so if you want to enqueue my script on the front page, and then also some other scripts, blah 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 blah, and then you have another condition of else if is post type is custom post type. No, really? Okay, well, it's post type archive and player, and then you want to enqueue that again. You don't have to write out all of the other stuff, because what some people do is they don't have the WP register script, and then instead they pass all these parameters to the WP enqueue script. And as you can see, in that case, now I have to copy all of this stuff twice, and then if I have a third place where I want to enqueue it, then I have to copy it again, and I have to change anything, I have to change it in multiple times. It's no fun. So I just use register in one place and then just enqueue it in the place where I need it, and that's it. That was a long description. Anyway, back to what I was doing. So yeah, well, what we need to do in order to closing some tabs, in order to load the JavaScript that is described right here on the documentation page, you need to, call WP-enqueue script on that enqueue block editor assets action, which is cool. What I would do in this case is I would look up where this is actually being used, and see if there's any way to register things beforehand. Edit form blocks PHP. Enqueue style, enqueue scope. The question is register scripts. No, there's no such thing as register scripts. Okay, so maybe that's what we have to do. Okay. First, after block assets have been enqueued for the editing interface, go add action on any hook before admin enqueue scripts. Okay. In the function you call your supply, simply use the WP-enqueue script and the WP-enqueue style to add your functionality to the block editor. Okay, I guess in this case we should stick with what they're suggesting. So let's do this. Enqueue block editor assets. So what I'm going to do is have another function called enqueue block editor assets, because why not, right? Public static function, and in here what we're going to do is call WP-enqueue script with Heresy utos blocks, and then plugins URL of build index.js, and then the second parameter is file. No dependencies, it seems like. That's interesting. Okay. Cool. So an array of empty dependencies, and then our version, which is going to be, let's start with version 0.0.1. I don't actually use semantic versioning though, so I guess it's kind of a waste to do this, but anyway. Okay, so let's save this, right? We save this file. We have our index.js file built. Let's go back to the browser and reload the add, or open DevTools first, I guess. Head over to the console. Okay, interesting warning here. Reload the page. Yes, reload it, please. And let's see what we have, right? And look at this. Tap is this thing on, coming from index.js. Sweet. So here's our file. It's working. Sweet. So now the next part would be to actually build a block, which is fun. Okay, so what I would do probably in this case in index.js, not the built one, sorry. In this index.js, I guess first in the SRC, I would probably do, I'm not sure how to do yet. Okay, maybe let's have a new directory called blocks. Okay, so we know that this is where all of our blocks are going to be. And let's do a new file and call it player metabox.js. Okay. And then our index.js file, let's get rid of this console log. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's put it in here. Player metabox.js. Save this. And in index.js, let's do, I don't know. 1 second. Let's try and figure out what we need to put in there. What we want to do is we want to load the file from the blocks directory. I think it's required. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, let's see. Filter references, attributes, edit and save. Let's look at block registration, I guess, because we're gonna have to call this anyway. And scroll down to the ES next. Nope. 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 Okay. Let's experiment. Okay, I guess no. Let's do the smart thing and do webpack include file. Guess maybe the correct question is not this, but instead Node.js include file. How to include JS file into another JS file. ES6 modules, blah blah blah. Support function, blah blah blah. Import hello from module. Require I guess require maybe, or just import okay, let's see if that's working. So what I did was I typed import /blocks player -metabox. It seems like it should have worked. Okay, let's check out our build file. Yeah, so here we have our blocks player Metabox.js, and all it's doing is this stuff. And here we're requiring this file without assigning it to anything. So that's cool. Oh no, we are cool. Okay, we're not doing anything with it yet, but if we go back to the browser, we should see that when we reload the page, our console is going to say, tap, is this thing on? No. Is this thing on? Player-metabox.js. Sweet. And again, we have index.js and player-metabox.js. Cool. So now we can start to actually build things and blocks and whatnot, which is a lot of reading documentation and trying things and making them work, copying stuff, adjusting it to our preference, and yeah, things like that. Okay, so let's start from the basic, right? We have block API reference, register in a block. All blocks must be registered before they can be used in the editor. Cool. Block edit and save. Okay, so yeah, let's go to block registration. Okay. Okay. Name for a block is unique string that identifies a block. Cool. Register block type. Did it have a different thing at some point, but I guess maybe not anymore. Is register block type available just on the console here? No, it's not. Okay, so this is where fun things happen. Window WP editor. No. Oh my goodness. Okay. And I will do what I usually do and search for register block type. Yeah, okay. Not very helpful yet. But where's register block type actually? Okay, blah blah blah. External this WP blocks. Okay, so I think what we're talking about is WP blocks register block type. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is what we need. Cool. Yeah, so here's what we can do, and here, so we can import register block type from WP blocks. Does that work? No, it's not a sound or call. There was a way to do this thing, and that is not the right way to do it, apparently. So that's gonna fail, right? Yeah, it does fail. Not use. And the older tutorials there were things like that. Okay. Node.js. So Node.js use or import properties from object. Use of import property from module, no. I guess not important. I'm sure somewhere in the documentation they have an example of this, but I'm not 100% sure where it would be. And their old documentation, they had that. Okay, let's look at something else real quick. Attributes, deprecator, blocks, block filters. Okay, what if we don't want to call any of this? Yes, next. Okay. So constant something equals something something. Okay. Almost. I guess. Let's see. Okay, so let's try that. Constant register block type equals the OP blocks. And let's console log register block type here, right? And let's see what happens when we reload the page. Over here, let's move this over. Okay. Disable cache. Can I read property register block type of undefined? So when am I supposed to run my things then? Okay, so block registration. Okay. No, okay, block registration. Register block type. Okay, name is supposed to be structured as namespace block type. That's fine. But when do we call? That is the question. Because it seems like I'm calling it too early, apparently. Transforms. Okay, show me a full example. Ooh. That's fun. Okay, so they're improving the nested blocks. That's pretty cool. Really? Okay, so there's a bunch of useful stuff, but not what I'm looking for right now. Gutenberg sample block. Let's do that, right? WordPress Gutenberg samples. Cool. Basic ES next. Cool. Source. Index.js. Awesome. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, there. See, constant register block type equals LV blocks. Cool, but it is not working. Why is it not working? Let's see, when is this being enqueued? Is it being enqueued in the footer? Index.php. Let's see, load plugin text domain, register block, WP register script. Well, why does this depend on stuff? Also, when is this being? Ooh, what? Register block type. Huh. Okay, so that's different. Certainly. Yeah, see, that's the confusing part, because this was... Okay, file name for version, blah, blah, blah. Blame, when was this last set before? 5 months ago, 8 days ago, 4 months ago. Yeah, so... See, okay, so WordPress documentation is great, except for sometimes things are missing, sometimes things are not exactly correct, and you're left wondering why is this not working, right? I think that's one of those cases right now. So the thing that I see that's different here, well, there's multiple things. One thing is they're hooking onto the init action and they're registering the script here and then calling register block type, which is not what the documentation says technically, right? The example that we have in building JavaScript, loading JavaScript. You can add the code that loads the JavaScript. This method follows the standard WordPress procedure when queuing scripts, blah, 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 blah. Hook is used, which is called when the block editor loads and will enqueue the JavaScript file myGuten.js. Okay, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Oh, did I not read all of it? Oops. Okay, extending the block editor. Maybe I did not read all of the documentation. Quite possible. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Yes. Okay, so what's going on here? Extending the block editor. Using the block style variation example to extend the editor. Okay. Notice that you're using a function from the op.blocks package. This means you must specify it as a dependency when you queue the script. Okay, I am in the wrong in this case. I did not actually read through all of the documentation, and I missed a vital part of having the op blocks as a dependency. Okay, so now what we need to do is grab the op blocks, go over to the editor, and Heresy utils.php, and this array of dependencies actually add the op blocks, right? Okay, so now in theory, when we go back to the browser, come on, browser, and we reload this page, we should see, ta-da, f-registered block type is now a thing in the console, right? Instead of getting there. So what happened? We were missing our dependency of WP blocks. So while technically WP blocks was being loaded, because we can access it from the console once the actual page loads, when our script is actually loaded on the page, it was not there. And this is because of how it got put into the queue of scripts to be loaded on the page. So WordPress has a good, I think, dependency tree for scripts and styles, where you can say my script depends on those other scripts. And what WordPress is going to do is it's gonna look at the dependencies of your script, and it's gonna go and render all those on the page first with all of their own dependencies. So if the script you depend on depends on other scripts, they'll be loaded before that script. And so that way your script will always be loaded after, in the HTML code of the page, it will be loaded after the initial script or after all of the scripts that you depend on. Now what would happen if your script depends on another script that depends on your script? I'm not sure. Probably nothing good, so don't try it. No, just kidding. Try it, see what happens. It's always fun to experiment like that. Yeah, so we were missing the dependency, and so our script was being loaded before the WP block script, and therefore we had an error when we were trying to access register block type. Okay, with that being said, oh, hold on. Quick questions. Did you manually create your Webpack config, or are you using a pre-built tool? I am using this package from WordPress at WordPress /scripts. So this is a handy npm package which has all of these different utility scripts bundled within it, and I'm specifically using the build and start scripts from it. And it's very cool. I just read a blog post about it just a couple of days ago, and essentially it boils down to having to run this line of code and just, I will show my screen now. Okay, back to the browser. The package is at WordPress /scripts. At WordPress /scripts, and then all you have to do to use it in your project, where you have a package JSON, npm install at WordPress /scripts, and then in your package JSON you can add one or all of these scripts, which is cool, and you can pick which one. I use build and start, like I said before. And with the build and start, the prerequisites are that you have an src folder with index.js file in it. That's the only requirement. If you read the documentation about this package, there are ways to do more advanced things, like create your own Webpack config and stuff like that. But this makes it super easy to get up and going, and makes it, you know, kind of standardized. Obviously, again, you can create your own Webpack config. You can create your own thing. You don't have to use this package at all, but it makes it very easy to people that are not used to working with Webpack, which is, I still prefer to stay away from it, or from manually configuring things. It makes it super easy to just get up and get going. So that answers the first question. Second question, ever notice how the handbook's documentation seems random with how they place related information? Yeah, I guess. Maybe there's ways to optimize this, but I mean, there's really lots and lots of stuff in there. So, you know, some people will read through it easily. Some people will have a hard time reading through it, and you know, it's fine. You will feel lost, and sometimes it takes a while to find exactly what you're looking for. But you know, after you do it a few times, you'll probably get the hang of it. I believe the WP hook system for actions and filters is one of its greatest strengths. I have to agree. I still haven't looked deeper into how people that don't use WordPress do it. because the project we're working on with Laravel, if we want to build something similar, it's gonna be a pain to build it all from scratch. Yeah, and so really it's super convenient. The fact that you can enqueue scripts, you can remove them, so dequeue them, and yeah, very well done. And the fact that it resolves all the dependencies on its own without you having to do anything besides say what you depend on is pretty awesome. Okay, so let's go back to block registration. Okay, so now we have the register block type function. What we need to do is register a block type with the unique name and parameters. So we're probably gonna want some of these parameters. Let's see if they have a more advanced example. I guess they don't. Attributes, blah, blah, blah. Transforms, no. No, 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 no. Nope. Okay, yeah. I would have liked if there was like one example where all of these are listed. Let me see if I can find register block type. There's writing your first block type. Queuing block scripts. Okay, so here's another dependency I'm missing the op dash element. So let's add that in there as well. Okay, register block type, editor script. Okay, so I like this approach because we can just register a script and then we don't even have to add an action to, we don't have to use the specific action for the block editor assets. That's cool. So what I'm going to do instead is add an action to init and maybe put it on 15 and call it register block types. Okay, and I'm gonna rename this function to register block types, and I'm going to just, that would be register script here, and then I'm going to call register block type, just grab all of the code, paste it right here, and call the block again heresy -utos /player -metabox in this case, and editor script is going to be heresy-utos /blocks. And it should be fine. You should be able to use the same editor script across multiple block types, so you can have, you know, adder block and still call it heresy-utos /blocks, because I'm guessing what they're going to do is they're going to somewhere down the line just call essentially the OP&Q script heresy-utos blocks. And even if you call this, you know, 50 times, it's just gonna enqueue it once. So that should be fine. Yeah, okay. Editor script heresy-utos blocks. So now I've saved all of this stuff, and let's see if that actually made a difference of any. Okay, so we still have our console log, tap is this thing on, blah blah blah. Cool. So it's still working, even though we're not actually using that thing anymore. We're just on the init action. Cool. So now the next thing to do is to register the block type on the front end. So let's go back to the documentation. Block tutorial, writing your first block type. There. So that's what I prefer to see, a more full example versus individual parts. That way I can just copy all of this and then, you know, see kind of the default things and edit them to my particular use case. So on the player Metabox, what I'm going to do is get rid of these console logs now. I don't need them anymore. I made sure that everything is working. And I'm just going to call register block type, which I have imported from wp.blocks. Again, grab my block type name replace it over here with their example. Title is going to be player information, right? Icon. Okay, let's go back to this cheat sheet for. Come on, I had this open somewhere. Okay. Dash icons cheat sheet. There we go. And some sort of a card with a small picture on it and details. I've seen this before, I believe. Like this. Yeah, let's do this one. Dash icons ID out. Okay, close this, go back to here, go back to the code. The information icon is this one. Element, they have an element thing which they're importing from element.create. Oh, what? Ah, okay. Yes, next. Oh, I don't even need to do this. Okay, so we can just use JSX in here. Cool. So what they're saying, okay, then let me grab this over here, replace it. So this is the ES6 version. It's not a similar call. I wonder if I should call this JSX. Potentially. Let's see what's gonna happen. I might not be able to build. Okay. Dash icons ID out. And this is player information. Category layout. Maybe, I don't know. Let's try and save this. Oh, I built. Okay, cool. Still, I feel like I probably should rename this to JSX. Rename JSX factor. Yes. Per Metabox.jsx. Is that gonna work? Motor parser unexpected token. Okay. Let's go back and rename this back to just JS. Okay. I wonder how I can tell it to no displaying text. I'm not sure. Okay, well, for now I'll just ignore the red stuff. Okay, if we go back to the browser and go back to add new and reload the page. Okay, this error was there before. I don't know why it's there, but let's do player information. Oh, what? Oh, is it not supposed to use? Okay, the icon was missing is what the problem was here. Let's do player information. There we go. Woohoo! Well, encounter an error. I mean, that's not perfect, but yeah. What is up with all of this? Block style is not fun. Oh, okay, yes. That's fine. A bunch of errors. Blah. Okay, so if we go back to here to the editor, let's get rid of this style. We don't care about it. No style. Okay, save again. Then reload and see what happens. Player information. Woohoo! Basic sample with JSX editor. And let's save that. Okay, let's publish, I guess. Let's go. Yeah, you're gonna see something fun. So we clicked on view player, right? But boom, it says not found. The reason for this is that we registered the post type that has rewrite setting, custom rewrite rules. The problem with this is that WordPress doesn't generate these on every page load, and instead it only generates them when you usually, okay, there's ways to force it, of course, but by default it only runs generates these permalinks on settings permalinks page. So all you have to do is just visit this page after you have registered your post type and your code base, and then it should just work. Okay, so here's our player 38, and here's basic example JSX front. Sweet. Okay. Cool. So we have something. Let's remove this. What should we do next? So the next thing I would like to do, potentially, is the following. I would like to figure out how we can set default blocks for a post type. I think this was called templates, something with templates. Templates. A block template is defined as a list of block items. Such blocks can have predefined attributes, placeholder content, and be static or dynamic. Blunt templates allow to specify a default initial state for an editor session. Awesome, that's exactly what we want. Setting a default state dynamically on the client, like default block, registered as a default for a given post type. Exactly what we need. So let's figure out where register template. So this is if you want to do it for an existing post type. We don't want to do it for an existing post type. So let's do, custom post types. Custom post type can register its own template during registration. So what we do is, in addition to show and rest true, we need to set up a template. And let's do this right now. So I'll grab this code and I'll go over here to Heresy utils PHP, back to where we register our thing. Show and rest true template. Again, I prefer to use the short version by now. Okay. And so we have an array, and we have two elements inside of that array. We have what we have is the name of our block, and then any attributes we want to pass to that block. In this case, we don't have any attributes yet, so we're going to leave that empty. And if I save this, and if we go back to our browser, reload the page, yes, reload it, we should, in theory, okay, so let's, okay, but now we can still add stuff, right? I think there was a way to lock down locking. There sometimes intention might be to lock the template on the UI so the blocks presented cannot be manipulated. Achieved with a template lock property. So I'm guessing again we just define it as another parameter over here in our settings. So template lock true, right? And let's see if we go back to the browser, reload this editor, and now we should be limited to just this one block and nothing else. Player information, we cannot add new blocks. We can change the title still, right? New player. We have the basic block. We cannot delete it. We can disable it as HTML and stuff like that, but we cannot delete it. And yeah, so now we can hit update, and that's it. And so when we go to add a new player, let's get rid of this. We have the default block there always, and we cannot add anything else. We cannot change it. We cannot delete it. Perfect, right? So this is a great way to create custom interfaces for entering data specific to this post type. And that's why I like Gutenberg, because now this is one standard way of doing this. You know, we no longer have like 5 or 6 different custom fields plugins where every person does something different. We have Gutenberg, and you can go in and you can create your own custom interface however you like within the framework of Gutenberg, and It's kind of like a more common language that everyone can learn, so that we can all work within the same framework. Yeah, and it's that simple, you know. And now you go in and you work on your block. You create your editing interface and you create your interface for the front end and all that, and you're good to go, pretty much. In case this becomes too complicated, you can always break this down into different blocks. And again, the template property allows you to specify multiple blocks. So, you know, you can have, I guess it would make sense to have maybe like one block that handles the social media, one block that handles this, that handles that. Yeah, it's just cool stuff. Very cool stuff in my opinion. Okay, so you can have different options. All prevents all operations. Insert prevents inserting or removing blocks, but allows moving existing blocks. Yeah, so this is perfect. For example, let's go back to the design. So if I wanted to, not that I'm going to, but if I wanted to, I could do it so that, you know, I can say, okay, well, you know, let's have one block for the name in social media, and then one block for the game, and one block for the game ROM, and one block for age, and then one block for country. And if they wanted to, they could swap these around, move them up and down, you know, adjust them however they want. You know, and in your case, it could be something different. You could have different kinds of blocks, and again, let the user move them around, but only limit them to those particular blocks. You don't have to. You want to lock the user down to the layout that you choose, and it's whatever is in the design. Sure, you can do that as well. Yeah, so you have this flexibility of saying, okay, you know, like these are the fields, these are the way they're displayed. There's no touching, or the polar opposite of, you know, like you can create whatever you want. And the in between middle thing is, you know, these are the fields, but you can rearrange them to your liking within the extent that I give you, essentially. Cool. So let's see what do we have here. We have 1:20 in the morning. That's what we have here. Yeah, I did not even get to work on the front end yet. But we have made some decent progress, I think. We have the custom post type. We have a basic block that doesn't do anything yet, granted. But with that basic block, we're gonna extend it next time and work on it further. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end for tonight. And let me write it down real quick. So blah blah blah. Okay, it's getting late. Okay. Oh my god, I cannot even find what I'm doing anymore. Okay, next stream, March 28th. Calendar. Give me a calendar. I don't want to see my calendar. I don't want to see my calendar. Thank you. Oh my god. Just give me a 2019 calendar, please. Thank you. Okay. 28th. Next Thursday is the 4th of April. Okay. 4th of April stream. Okay, so what we want to do, start implementing the UI of the Metabox block. Well, is it the UI? Okay, create editing UI for the player Metabox block. Okay, player information is, I think, what I called it. Player information. Okay, then the next thing would be And the next thing is, I guess, implement the design for single player PHP. Okay. And I think that's enough, honestly. Okay, let's do numbers instead. That's probably more than enough. I don't know if I'll be able to handle all of this next time, considering how much documentation I have to read still in order to learn all of this stuff. But again, this is part of the daily, not struggle, the daily life of a developer. You know, when you're learning new APIs and stuff like that. Yeah, so this is the idea for next time, pretty much. Oh my god, not here. Here, okay. This lock template feature is what I needed to learn, as I have a plugin on the WP repo that's 80% custom metaboxes. And your plugin's dependency of the custom metabox API is one of the reasons you're not a fan of Gutenberg. Oh, because you're gonna have to redesign the entire. Yes, that's true. That's true. I mean, I guess that's true. Well, I mean, for now, for a little while, you're gonna be able to provide to use the old one, but yeah, you're pretty much gonna have to redo all of your work within Gutenberg. Not optimal, but here's the cool thing though. When you register a block, you can say, oh, somewhere down at the bottom here, that reusable. Okay, so that's different. Multiple. So you can say multiple false, and this is going to prevent users from adding your block multiple times to the same post, which is cool because that's exactly the purpose of Metabox, right? You only want to have it once, and then you don't have to output anything on the front end. You can just save all of your stuff and post meta, and it just works. Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's not gonna be fun to have to redo all of this within Gutenberg, but you know, I like it. If you're starting now, if you're already done with your work, then yes, it's gonna be a lot of work to redo everything over. But in the long term, you know, I like it because it's just a more unified way for everyone to do the same thing, which is good. Because, you know, up until now, you could write your Metabox with whatever custom HTML, and again, you're still going to be able to do that. Yeah, there's more than one side to the story for sure. Yeah, but what you can do is you can say, I forget where it was exactly in the documentation, but you could say that you don't want to use, because by default I think it's going to provide so by default all of the old meta boxes still should work in theory, most of them at least, but it's going to be like, but you can say that you have support for Gutenberg, and so it's not going to load your Metabox twice or something like this. Somewhere in the documentation, it's a lot of stuff to read through for sure. Okay, let's go back for Vapor Stream. Yep. Okay, so this is the plan for next week. I should update my. Oh, come on, stop switching. I should update my Twitch stuff at some point, my Twitch events. Yeah, with that being said, that's all for tonight. And I will see you next week, hopefully. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's about it. See you until next week at about the same time, roughly. Oh, wait, not quite. I lied. Oh, daylight saving time is complicated. Well, 8 p.m. UTC is usually what I start at. I don't know what in other time zones it is. Yeah. until next week. Bye.